Today is December 8th, 2014, and it's late in the evening, but it is still the 8th. And the last video that I put up was about the Ballingers, the last two that I've talked on. And more about the Ballingers, I would first go back to Lonnie Ballinger and some things that I said that happened there, and how I was one time held hostage by police and FBI, and there were two FBI agents there and some kind of a cop, and I do remember one of the FBI agents' names, and it was Bob or Robert Jordan. He later became the FBI director for Portland FBI field offices. And I remember him, he was completely, he was a different person entirely from this other Jordan who I met at the Ballinger's house when I was held hostage in their house. It was a trailer in the Tualatin area. And and at their home location is where Jordan, the military guy who I ended up later working with at Logan's, decades later. I believe it was the same person, looked the same, had the same kind of background, and anyway, his name was Jordan. He was connected to cops and military somehow. But this other Jordan was Bob Jordan, who was one of the FBI agents that came to my house when I was attempting to report some of the things that were being done to me. And I do know that Lonnie Ballinger, aside from my mention of seeing her in Portland FBI field offices, and also knowing a little bit about her from her house and the other people that she was around, I mentioned she carried a gun. She had a personal handgun, and it was government issued. There was another gun as well that I don't think was government issued, and it was a different kind of it was like a different kind of metallic and non-black gun. Like, it had a rounded barrel. It didn't look like kind of a streamlined cop gun or FBI gun. It looked like one of those personal pistols that you carry around, or that you see sometimes. And I don't know that much about guns. I have never been trained or studied guns, so I really don't know all the time exactly how to describe them, because for that reason. But just by description, and seeing some things, commonly that everyone sees in movies and media and ads or whatever. This was not like a Glock type of a gun, this extra gun that she had. It was looked like like a Western, like an old Western movie type of a gun. So she did carry guns, and she also shot at a shooting range with a bunch of cops and FBI. And I was taken there once by her. So she definitely was a government employee, aside from being a hairdresser. And like I said, I was having photos taken of me, like child porn type photos, at this location that she was involved in, which was not her house. Actually, there was a different location for that. But I do want to mention Bob Jordan, because I don't know, I'm not sure where he was working at that time, or if he was from a different state and he flew in, or if he was from Oregon State and he just drove over. He definitely, I don't think he was director of Portland FBI offices at that time at all. But it was him, and I didn't really, as I say, I didn't believe them very much when they told me that, when I found out that they were FBI. So I listened to everything that I was being told, and I got a good look at his face. I saw their credentials because they wanted me to believe them and to feel intimidated, I guess. Or maybe they thought I would just die and at some point and no one would have to worry about me. But because there were several attempts on my life. And however, I did some checking myself even back then because I was in such disbelief about what had happened to me and what was going on, that I started trying to do research on my own, and I did come to the conclusion that they were not joking. They weren't lying about being FBI, and they weren't lying about being cops. And definitely people did lie sometimes. Usually they were all government connected, but they would try to swap names sometimes, or places on occasion. Other times they didn't lie at all. They just felt very secure about what they were doing. And as I've said before, I was being trained for a long time to have accidents that would kill me, or to commit suicide, and there were several different ways to eliminate me that the government had put into place. So I'm sure that some of them thought, okay, she's going to, I project and foresee her living, through this and that, and until this age, or whatever, or, surviving. I mean, sure, there's probably a few people who did see that. But there are also just as many who possibly saw you can sometimes change the future. And they tried to do that by hoping that I would die. There were others, I'm sure, that were positive I was going to die, because they wouldn't have spent the inordinate amount of time training me to be killed if they did not have reason from a very early age, from my very early age on, to want to kill me or feel that they needed to kill me. And to do something like that, to develop that kind of a defense mechanism for themselves to fall back on by getting rid of me, that pretty much tells you that what they were doing, they always knew was illegal, and it was highly high crimes and misdemeanors, basically. What they were doing was bad enough that all of their escape plans involved my dying. And they tried to program me with several of those. So in addition to just wanting to torture me with rape constantly, and torturing me by other physical means, which were very severe and extreme, they also had strategies on how to get rid of me. So that's a little bit more about, just gives you a little more background regarding, when I say that this is government, how much evidence is there really, and like what are the facts to support that? Like that's, for example, one fact that I can give you. And when I, several years ago, not decades ago, but several years ago, attempted to report a couple of FBI agents for breaking into my house, basically, and groping me, molesting me, I then found out at that time that Robert Jordan, who I didn't hear his name as Bob, I just heard it as Robert, like saw that it was Robert Jordan, and it didn't ring a bell right away for me at all. I mean, at the time I was making the report about the other guys, I didn't think about him and how I knew him from before. But But he was the person to take my call. And I got really, I know that I got defamed by all of those agents. I don't think that it would have made a difference whether Robert Jordan had been the director or not. I know that Laura Laughlin was very hostile towards me. And she later transferred offices from Portland to Washington State after I moved there. And she had also followed me around when I was a kid, because they had used me to try to go after one of their mafia cases that involved what they call the Big Five. And they tried using me for a lot of different things. And then they were always framing me. They're always attempting to frame me for something because what they were doing was so bad. You know, what they had started against me when I was very little, they didn't have any excuse for it. You know, I hadn't committed any crimes. I was innocent. I was a little girl. And they feared me. They wanted to have some kind of dirt on me because of things that they'd done. So anyway, that is one other thing about Lonnie Ballinger. And as I say, she also did take me to a government site, which was a shooting range. And it was with a bunch of other government employees. There's just no doubt that Lonnie is and was working for the government, as I say. And for her to be involved in things she was involved with, and to involve the people that she involved in committing more crimes against me, just shows you that this is a larger scale government project than most people imagine it to be. So back to Sandy Ballinger, because then I was talking about Sandy and things that happened at her house, how the practice of trying to get me to accept and consent to being raped was also being practiced there, and then I was tortured too. Well, it's at one point some cops did show up. Like I got a hold of the phone and somehow called someone, and maybe hit 911, and they had to show up because it was on a public call. Either that happened or someone set it up so that it looked like cops were showing up, but they just wanted them to show up so that they could stage this entire next thing that they did. Because the next thing that they did was they tried to organize a cop bribe and said, if you drop the cops who showed me their ID, and they came in cop cars, they said if you drop your report about what you say is being done to you, maybe we can make arrangements so that you can go to college. And this was after, like, I started crying because they had just stolen some more songs from me. They forced me to sing some songs and make some up. And then they gave the tape recordings over to someone who was whisking it away to Canada or the U.S. Not sure which, because both Canadians and U.S. people were showing up at that house when I was there. And I started crying finally because I said, you know, everyone's stealing from me. Everyone's stealing everything I ever wrote, and they're getting rich. I'm not getting anything, and where am I going to be when I'm older? And I have no way to make any money, no job. I'm not going to have any kind of a future, and all I have is a bunch of people lying about me, saying I'm mentally ill, and getting rich off of me. And I basically just started sobbing because, you know, I really didn't have a future. So then their idea was to try to bribe me and say, when I was trying to then make a report about something, they tried to make it sound like, well, we can help you get into a college. I mean, as if I couldn't do that on my own. Because if they hadn't been torturing me to start with, I probably would have had my choice and pick of any college in the United States.